can begin from there as more people trickle in, and then I'll pick up from there. So I want to start with, I think, with Kali and then with Lotte. So Kali, a few minutes.
Thanks, Patrick, and thank you for inviting me to give a few opening words. You know, I think the sad fact is by the time we finish today's workshop, over 800 Africans will have died on the roads. And we know that about 400 of those will be pedestrians and cyclists. And I know we use those statistics, everyone on this call uses those statistics, but you know, there are mums, our dads, our brothers and our sisters. And I think for me, that alone is reason enough that we're all here today for this sort of urgent need to have coalitions, you know, just trying to come together and deal with a common threat. But I think, you know, we talk about coalition building and collaboration all the time, but it's not actually that easy. I mean, you know, we're different personalities, different organizations. Sometimes we're competing for the same funds. So actually turning, I think, what's quite an obvious need into an actual practical coalition, that's the trick. And I guess that's what we're here to talk about today. You know, and I'm humble enough to know that for what I'm trying to achieve, the one certainty I have is that I can't do it alone. That I have to, even as, you know, working for the United Nations, we still can't do what we need to do without having coalitions and working with other organizations and individuals. So, you know, that's why I'm here today to sort of support this proactive building of coalitions. So thank you for having me. And I just wanted to say, I feel like it would be strange to not mention that our thoughts are with all our colleagues and friends in Ukraine. You know, it's just an awful situation. And I think most of us can't believe that we're in 2022 and you're seeing citizens and mums and teachers kind of, you know, pulling up arms to protect their country. And I just wanted to mention it, that our thoughts are with them. And yeah, back over to you, Patrick. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kali, and for your words, and thank you again for also making this workshop possible through the UNEP Share the Road program. We appreciate the sort of the sponsorship. Thank you very much, and over to you, Lotte.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Kali, also for mentioning sort of the backdrop that we all thinking about these days, and which is close to our hearts, both in relation to the terrible situation that we see here in Europe, but also that we're losing people every day, we're losing people every minute, and that's why we're here. I just want to say that the reason why we're here is actually is because of a partnership that we started a long time ago with Kali and also with Bronwyn, and where we sort of saw that some of the work that you had done on pedestrian policies and sort of policy work at the city level was something that our NGOs could pick up. So sort of the coalition building there, maybe it's not a coalition, but a partnership that we started there made us realize that we're strong at something else, and you're strong at something else. There's always a partner out there who is strong at something that you might not be strong at, and that's why we're here. So it's all about all these regional linkages that we would like to see. We'd like to see more concerted efforts to prevent all these fatalities that Kali talked about. So in the Alliance, we started an Africa chapter in 2018. Today we have 80 NGOs in 31 countries out of the 53 countries in Africa. We now have staff behind it. We have a strategic plan with clear priorities. We have activity plans. We have all these things. So we're in a really good position to start all this work. And today we're going to talk about how we sort of link up with the rest of the region and how that's possible. So really to try to open the eyes about the opportunities that are out there, to understand what are people doing and how can we link up with that. Thanks to Kali, thanks to UNEP, thanks to Walk 21, thanks to Bronwyn, thanks to the speakers that we have here with us today. Thank you very much for joining, and thank you because you care, and thank you because you are here and you really want to have your voice heard and make a change. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lotte. And as Lotte has mentioned, we have several speakers today. And by way of introducing our agenda and also introducing the speakers, I want to put on screen how the day or the few hours will run, and then, of course, introduce our speakers. So if you let me just 1 second, share that. So if you can see my screen, I want to say that we have organized this workshop with a team and who are going also to be the speakers for today. And I will begin with the Chief Executive Officer of WOC 21. This is Bronwyn Thornton, and she's going to run a session today, but I'd like her to quickly say hi to the people so that they know who she is, so that when you're speaking, Bronwyn, then people can relate the face to the voice. Go ahead.
Good morning, Patrick. Very nice to be here. Thank you.
All right. So, and we also have Emmanuel John, Engineer Emmanuel John. Say hi to the people, and then we'll proceed. You'll have major sessions towards the end. And Emmanuel, go ahead.
Pleasure to be here and then to do a presentation later in the course of the program. Thank you for having me.
Great. Do we have Juliet with us?
Hello.
Okay. Permit me. Christine Kauma had a serious medical concern, so she's unable to make it. But Dr. Francis Atari is standing in to make that presentation on his behalf.
Very good. Thank you so much. So
Doctor,
let me give
are you here?
chance
Please indicate.
Yes. Dr. Francis Itare, say hi to the people.
My people, it's a pleasure being here.
Okay.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, the rare privilege I have here to be part of this. I'm grateful.
Grateful. Thank you so much for, of course, availing yourself. And we have Juliet. Juliet, say hi to the people.
Thank you very much, Patrick. My name is Juliet Rita, and I'm representing the Africa Network for Walking and Cycling, what we are calling ANWAC. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So you'll be hearing from that team, and I will be moderating the whole workshop. And actually, I want us just to begin. As we shall begin, I know we are many, and we will keep knowing each other in the way we interact. And I just want us to do something, first of all, to try and gather experiences from who we are. And to do that, I want just us to test ourselves. So wherever you are, we are going to run a poll and then use that poll to gather experiences about coalitions, about coming together, about teams and so on. So Chukwu, if you can put the poll, and then we see how much experience we have in this. So Chukwu. So I can't see the poll, Chukwu, because I'm also part of the account. Is it on?
Yes,
it's on.
Very good. Okay, now okay. Chukwu, you tell me the results once. Give us a minute, and then we see.
Yeah, I tried to vote in it, Patrick, but actually I can see the results, which we have 68% of people have voted already. Limited resources is winning or losing, depending on which way you look at it. Okay. Limited time and poor communication. It seems to be slowing in terms of the number of responses.
Okay, so we have hit 70% response?
Nearly 70, we're at 66%.
Okay, let's
there
see
we are,
more.
70%. We are at 70%. And limited resources continues to dominate by 48% of responses, followed by limited time and poor communication.
Okay, great. So, yeah, so these now, I was asking just, and is there anybody with no experience who has never been a coalition or a team or anything like no experience? Is there any percentage on that? 0, right?
Sorry, I was on mute.
Yeah.
No experience. Yes, there was 2 people voted on no experience.
Okay, 2 people voted no experience. Great. So I think basically what we want to say is that although we are talking about coalition, in the beginning, we are looking at the name coalition or the terminology coalition in a broader sense, but basically is you have ever been together as 2, 3, 4, or many people for a particular reason, and then there were challenges of staying together or working together, and there could be several reasons, but I was just limiting this to a bit of like the resources were inadequate or the time was not there. There could be poor communication, and based on your experiences, it means therefore that there could be issues to do with coming together, and that's why it's very important that we look at a bit of in details of why people come together, why fail, and at some point we'll be looking with Emmanuel about the barriers that come when you're having groups come together and try to achieve something. But in the meantime, I want to pick if you have had no experience, or sorry, not if you had you have answered about limited resources. I want somebody to just raise their hand and explain to us how it was and whether the coalition was sustained or you were able to break down the coalition due to limited resources or limited time. So just raise up your hand and let's share. You'll say your name and then you share with us your experience generally on that challenge, and maybe did that challenge lead to dissolution of the coalition, or did you surmount that difficulty and then you're able to proceed? So I see one hand up. Simon Obi, say your name, but you can still say your name so that we hear how you pronounce it. Okay, Simon.
All right, thank you so very much, Patrick. It's a great pleasure to join this conversation this moment. My name is Simon Patrick Obi, and I am connecting from Nigeria. Yes, we have had a bit of experience in building up a coalition. And one of the biggest problems we have faced, or we are facing, is the issue of resources. As a coalition that is coming up, we needed resources to stabilize our activities. We needed resources which would help in administration. We needed resources which would help us, to build up, to start up. But it wasn't forthcoming. And it can be understood. We understood that that NGOs are struggling. Some of the NGOs are looking for funding to fund their, robust programming, and that was difficult for all NGOs to come together to contribute, to be able to fund some of the activities. And of course, we have also approached so many government agencies, organized private sector to support activities of NGO, but it never came to pass. So resources was one of the biggest problems, and we didn't collapse, but it makes us not to be as vibrant as we should be. Okay. So that's one thing that has happened within the Nigeria Coalition for Road Safety NGO. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I hear you, and in the resources, I always put resources, meaning, of course, there is financial and other, the other material resources, other opportunities that may be resources. So in as much as, again, it's good because we need money, but apart from funding, just think of other ways of getting non-financial resources, because when you lack finances, it looks like everything is doomed, but not completely. So let's hear a view from, yes, Dr. Franz. Yeah.
I'm Dr. Franz Atare, a member of Cycling Federation of Nigeria. And at the same time, I just completed my 8-year tenure as the Director of Sport for University of Uyo.
Okay.
Meanwhile, I teach in physical and health education department in the university. I'm currently an associate professor in the department. I look at this issue of limited resources from two perspectives. Okay. Of course, sometimes we group resources into either human resources or material resources. Most times we tend to lean on more on material resources in terms of finances. But this time around, I want to talk about one that sometimes tend to put away most governmental authorities or governmental agencies for taking interest in coalition. The first one we observed was the issue of logistics. Even if you have something that is free, remember that there was a time Shell Mobility made a request to provide my university with 200 bikes to promote free mobility within the university campuses, because I have about 5 campuses, but in one of the main campuses. One, because of this issue of logistics, we book appointment more than 5 times the appointment was terminated. 5 times the book appointment for us to meet so that we can prepare an MOU. The coalition could not meet. Even the Honorable Commissioner for the state in terms of planning that was equally involved. Today I am in Abuja, tomorrow I am in Lagos, tomorrow come today, tomorrow come next, tomorrow. The meeting never held. And I try to trace what actually be responsible is because nobody want to bear the cost of transportation, hotel accommodation, logistics, and those little things that we need to kickstart the program. So despite all the advantages that the program has, it died a natural death. But with a change of administration now, we are still trying to see how we can revive those aspects and bring that laudable project back to Akwa Ibom State.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Franz. I think that's quite important that, especially what you have ended with, what can you do when you've identified there's a challenge here? Like you're saying now, you have identified that nobody wants to bear the cost of maybe facilitating the workshop or movement and all that, but then going back, and yet you have here some resources, 100 bicycles that cannot take off, so to speak, because of just few logistics. So that's something very important to put at the back of our mind, logistics. And we shall see later in the later sessions about, therefore, coordinating. How do you coordinate that? So we'll hear finally from host, and thank you, Dr. Franz, again. We'll hear from host and then move on to another discussion. So host, what's your take?
Hi, everybody. Coalitions work. There is no doubt about it that you can actually make people work together. But to be efficient and effective, they need to have a dedicated secretariat, which if you start working with volunteers always have their own interest at mind because they need to survive. And if you don't have a secretariat sitting there, which is running the organization properly and dedicated towards that organization, you are failing to advance properly, as Simon said. And I have to agree with what Simon said anyway, to advance properly and to grow as you wish to grow. And the expectations of the members of the coalition are also much more than these volunteers which are sitting there and driving the coalition can actually deliver. I thank you.
Thank you very much, host. And for those who have shared that experience, I think the discussion will continue on in terms of but it's very important that at the onset we are able to know that we are not coming to this workshop empty-handed. We've got some experiences and also we have some thoughts to share, as well as also learn new things by getting ideas from each one of us on how things have worked and how we can make them improve for the better, and especially on our core topic of walking and cycling for Africa. So just quickly, the agenda, I'm putting the agenda before I can begin the first session, that we look at more on the ways in which we come together in terms of different ways of different formations where people come together, whether it's coalitions and so on. So the first session will be understanding advocacy through coalitions. Then Brunwen will come in with tips and good practice working as a coalition. And then we'll come to African Network Walking and Cycling Plan to see how the plan is, and a bit of background will begin by Juliet, who is the network coordinator, and then we shall come to more deeper issues on analyzing the barriers of implementing cycling initiatives, as well as harnessing best practices around Africa. So this is what we want to do in the next 2.5 hours. We have a break in between, so don't feel so much pressurized. But let's begin again just by a general discussion, but this will be individual work. I want all of us to, maybe you have a paper or you can write somewhere. We have, this will be our beginning sort of topic sentence, which is a quote from Henry Ford, why people come together, why coalitions. And of course, says coming together is a beginning, keep it together will make progress, and then working together will give success. Now, there are many ways people can come together, and we have heard from people saying, is it a partnership, is it a coalition, is it, what is it, an alliance? And to begin with, as take your pen and paper, I have put some types of formations, network, coalitions, alliances, and partnerships. And there's a description, ways of coming together, the description. I have mixed and matched them. Try in your way to think, what is a network defined by either of these 4 explanations? Is a network, is it a group of formal, informal, or is it characterized by long-term permanent agreement? Is it a more formal structure? So what I want us to do is match the formation with the ways of coming together, or the description that is on the right with the formation on the left. And then we can get those, again, we hear your views, who maybe gets correct, and then we shall look at how we can generally understand, are we forming coalition, alliance, partnership, or network? And what is therefore the differences as explained in the description. So I hope the instructions are clear. Just, we think, before we talk of networks, coalitions, alliances, partnerships, and even you can add more, a team and all that, but I want us to focus on these 4, because these are actually sort of the bedrock of formations that can help us to fast track advocacy for walking and cycling in Africa. So let's do that in the next 5 minutes. Just think about it, and then we'll take a few people to give us a lead on which is which describes the network, which describes a coalition, which describes an alliance, and which describes a partnership. So here I have messed them up. We need to put them, to align them each to define what it is. So anyone who wants to make a go? I'll come to you, Sam. Yes, and I think the instructions were okay. So, but Sam, give it a shot and let's see whether these things make any sense or difference. Then we'll see what it means for us. Yes, Sam, introduce yourself also a little bit, and then go for it.
Okay, my name is Sam Nyaudi from Road Safe Zimbabwe. We are a non-governmental organization that is focusing in advocacy, awareness, education, and programs for road safety in Zimbabwe. Okay, to respond to the question, my attempt, I will start with networks. I think a network, yeah, that will go to number 4, opportunities to exchange information, and can be informal, sorry. Yeah, and then the coalition is more formal, that's number 3, a more formal structure and involves joint work and sometimes around a single event, issue or campaign.
Okay.
Then the alliance is a group, formal or informal, of organizations, that's number 1, and individuals that come together for a period to collaborate to achieve changes in policy, law, programs, funding, at a particular issue. And therefore, a partnership would be number 2, which is characterized by more long-term agreements and common ideals among trusted partners.
Okay, thank you very much, Sam, for that. Anybody else with a different, I think you have scored actually 50%. So you have matched 2 correctly. Thank you very much. Let's hear from Dr. Franz. Was your hand up? Yeah.
No, I was just trying to applaud him because I tend to told him the same line of reasoning with him.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, and I said mostly just 2 very close were confused, the last 2, but the first ones were very correct in terms of that the network gives an opportunity to exchange information and was often informal. So that, that's the network. Then for coalitions, they are more formal structures and involve joint work, sometimes around a single event, issue, or campaign. So the confusion was on the alliances and partnerships. Anybody who wants to match alliances and partnerships? Okay. All right, so I'll take a go at that so that I try to explain why this was important. Now, the alliances are the ones characterized by long-term agreements on common ideals among trusted partners, strategies and plans may be jointly developed, and partnerships is a group of formal, informal of organizations and individuals that come together for a period to collaborate to achieve changes, policy, law, programs, etc. So that is the difference. But if you look at, in your experience, as we talked earlier, have you been in a network? Have you been in a coalition? Have you been in an alliance? Have you been in partnerships? And what were you able to sort of reflect on what defines each and what is the scope of your coming together? What should you do and what should you not do? What should you expect and what you should not expect? Because initially, as some of you have alluded, is that what sometimes we expect is what is not being offered by the coming together, whether it's a coalition or a network. In partnerships, you may expect some things that are not actually to be offered by partnerships. But all in all, I think to make it quite interesting is to see that it is possible that you are in a network. Then in that network, you can form a coalition within the network. Then in that coalition, you may create partnerships, meaning that you are defining the scope, the roles, and even the strategy differently as you move, as you progress. Or you can just have the network that involves many organizations, many individuals, and then from there, the scope of the network therefore will be limited to some level. But then you can or to develop or grow or advance to more closer formations, depending on the purpose for which you really want to come together for. So in terms of that, I want to look at how, therefore, to improve advocacy in terms of what we have looked at: network, coalitions, partnership, alliances, and so on. The level of the engagement in which that is bringing you together must be very clear, and because that determines your mission, your goals, and the guidance that will sort of guide or help in operating as a group. So whether you're in a network, whether you're in a coalition, whether you're in partnership, at what level, at that level of formation, then your mission, goals, and guidelines will be defined. And just to sort of sum it up, if you are, I'm going now to like Obi in Nigeria, you are forming a coalition, then your mission, goals, and guidelines will be different if you, and unlike when you're forming a partnership, based on the definition we have seen. Is it a long term? Is it about strategic planning? Is it about just sharing information? So what is the mission? And that makes sure that you're able to know what to expect. So if you want to sort of advocate as a network, then maybe your work will be limited to certain parameters. If you want to advocate as a coalition, then it means what is the scope of your advocacy. So understanding this, therefore, will give us more understanding of how do we actually try to achieve walking and cycling advocacy, policies in place, implementation of those policies, and so on. Again, in number 2, depending on what you have formed, the coordination mechanisms must all allow for sharing of knowledge, resources, tools, platforms, and etc. And again, the knowledge shared within networks, partnerships, coalitions, and so on. Some of these, like a network, you may not need all the information. You may need just enough information to make sure that you are able to stay up to date with what is happening within the network. And then, but if you're in a partnership and you're designing strategies together, there is a level of information and knowledge that is more than if you're in a network. And this goes on and on. But the idea is that the coordination mechanisms are very key, and maybe part of our session today, Juliet, will look at the African network of walking and cycling plan. What does it give us? What do we expect from it? And what can we not expect? Second, finally, is the messaging for the group, whether it's partnership, coalition, and so on. The messaging must always be very strong and consistent, and it must relate to what we are calling evidence-based interventions. So if we are going to advocate as a team, whether it's a coalition network, it is very important to have a consistent and strong message. Why consistent? Because that, of course, amplifies. If it's a call for action, it amplifies what we are saying, and it is not fragmented. In the Western Africa side, we are saying this, in the East, we are saying the other way, and so on. There has to be sort of very consistent. For example, we are saying we need every country or every city in Africa to effect or to develop non-motorized transport policy. So that should be consistent. And then in terms of where it's implemented can be different, but we have that message, and it's a key, it is an umbrella that actually is known, that it is evidence-based, that if we improve NMT policies, then that has big ramifications for saving lives. So those 3 things are what I would say are key in terms of knowing the levels of engagement and looking at how you are going to have your mission, goals, guidelines, how you are going to coordinate, and finally, what messaging you are going to give. And before I conclude this session, I just want to say that walking and cycling coalitions, and we are talking coalitions can be, you can have one in each country, but we have the African overall. But the purpose or the main key reasons that we see for this workshop we want to get out from is that we want to bring more effective and efficient delivery of programs. So effective and efficient, again, to eliminate unnecessary duplication of effort. And of course, that also has connotes about resources. Efficient use of resources, we are not duplicating efforts. Advocate for more cohesive and comprehensive interventions. Then coordinate responsibility in ways that afford more participants access to programs. So more participants and responsibilities. And again, this will be moving as we move to the next session, will become clear. Then allow for greater variety of services. And again, ANWAC has given us that a bit of, we have experts in transport, engineers, NGOs, all these groups. The greater variety of services makes the walking and cycling advocacy more efficient and can be fast-tracked through this. So I will ask if there's any question on this session before I usher in Brunnen to give us a little bit of insight to the actual hands-on experiences and tips on how we can improve coalitions, strengthen them, and so on. So any question or any comments? I have a few minutes to allow any discussion. Yeah, about 5 minutes. So if you want to comment on that session, what was not clear and what I may have missed out that you think we should share. Yeah, you can raise your hand up and then I'll give you a chance. Yeah, I see one hand up. Yeah, host, please go ahead.
Just maybe another point which I would like to make on a coalition is it's better to have a smaller group of people in a coalition or organizations in a coalition than to have a bigger group. We found that the smaller group does actually want to work together, and obviously the area makes also a difference. But the smaller group is better to keep together and hold together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And hosts, for saying that, I will ask also, I think there's I know a few of the NGOs who are doing some groupings, and one would be, based on what you have said, smaller group or bigger group, how efficient can it be and what is the level of engagement for that group? So if, is Awa with us? Awa, Senegal? Okay, as we check, yes, Prince, I see your hand up. Yes, please go ahead and share, have a minute or two, yeah.
Hello, good afternoon, Mr. Patrick and everyone. I'm happy to be in this meeting, and I think we're making progress. Our view is the more, the merrier. The more members you have in the coalition, the more network you have, and the more access you have to the people, and the higher your level of advocacy. The major thing is to have an understanding of your work plan and how you implement your programs. For example, in Nigeria, we have about 50 NGOs in the coalition, and most of them are spread across the country. So the network can easily be circulated, the information can easily, be coordinated. So that is my view. If you have a more coalition, your voice might not be too strong. So the more NGOs in that country to be able to come together, having several coalitions in the country might not be the best, because along the line there might be conflict of interest and all that. So it's better for NGOs to come together and form a stronger organizations as a coalition, across in Africa. Thank you, Mr. Patrick, for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. And you have said, it's quite interesting. The more actually the merrier. When do we need numbers and for what, and when do we need maybe less numbers? I think it's quite interesting, both points from host and you, that the view for host looking smaller numbers may work, but again, bigger numbers may amplify the voice. So I think that's quite okay. I was actually looking for Awa or Brad, because I know a bit of the coming together of the, I think the land, you have a coalition trying to make a coalition. What has been your experience in terms of bringing people together with different interests, with different expertise? Some are professionals, others are not so professional. Is Awa just a minute of your experience in Senegal?
Hello everybody. Sorry, I had some issues switching from one mic to another. Yes, in the example of Learn Coalition, the first issue we faced is the issue of people coming from different sectors and asking us that they would need some money perhaps together, you know. So you must really raise the interest for the common goal to try to lower all those aspects. And anyway, as we are in low and middle income countries, if you take people from his work, his official work, unpaid work, to bring him to give his energy, his work even into a coalition, there should be even transport, you know, some little things given to him as a motivation, because when you're struggling every day, even for transport, for eating and things like that, even if there's a big cause, you can bring people together only by saying that, yes, it's a big cause, it's something noble, we should, yes, all stuck to it. My passion for road safety wasn't enough to bring them in. From my experience, you can't have them all committed at the same time. You have the coalition, 15 people, 10 people, and depending on the time they could allocate. Sometimes you have some 5, 6 working on that theme, and another day or 2 other days you have the 5 or 6 others working on another theme. And you can make Zoom meetings and you can discuss about things, because Zoom is helping a lot now. Internet is really helping for those who can't sometimes make the move for something. But it was really interesting to having people from the police, to having people from academic, to having people from road safety, from NGOs, from the government coming together, and it was it's still a rich experience.
Yeah,
but not easy going one, because it's not easy to have them on board, to have them committed. But it's really a nice experience.
Thank you so much. I think you are putting also a good angle to that, different levels of people, different background, because you're forming a coalition from different backgrounds, from teaching to being an engineer and all that. I think that's quite a good experience to check and look at what can be the potential problems and how do you actually try to take care of those potential problems as you move on. So thank you very much, Awa. I'll do final one with a Bright, maybe a different, again, a different experience in terms of coalitions. And just a minute before I usher in Ronan. Okay, so Bright, short experience.
Okay, yeah, I'll be quick. My experience and the greatest challenge is the realization that every organization, and we have different organizations from private companies to government to NGO, civil society, they don't exist in isolation. They have cultures from where they come from. So to be able to harmonize and to come up with a common goal and a common view of what it is that you want to achieve continues to be the challenge. The what's in it for me in terms of output and outcomes becomes the hard work so that we are on the same page. So that therefore affects the level of commitment and involvement. So the greatest challenge is to be able to communicate the mutual goal or the shared goal so that it's clear to everyone that this is what we all should then be looking at and working on. So that's what I will say for now.
Thank you, Brett, and thank you everyone who shared that. And I know if you had more time, we can try to expand on this and look at what are the pros and cons, the strengths, the weaknesses, as well as all these challenges and how we can try to do it. But to take us further on this discussion, I think from Ronan, from what you hear, the discussion edging towards, I think WOC 21 has several things being in existence for some time. I think I want to bring you in here for the next 15 minutes or so, guide us in the discussion on what are the good practices. What tips can you give this team here about coming together, keeping together, and getting successful together. So, Bronwyn, take it away.
Thank you, Patrick. And hello, everybody. I feel very honored to be here, and it's really great to join you and have this conversation, because it's something that we think a lot about at Walk 21, because it's what we've been doing for the last 21 years. And I've been listening this morning already and heard some real kernels of the sort of the home truths of the challenge that we face, as well as some of those genuine pathways by which we can actually make a difference. And I think the fact that Walk 21 is here in this call is already a reflection of some of the things that I'm going to talk about around working as a coalition. I'm just going to share my screen. I have a few images to share this process with. I want to actually sort of tell the story of Walk 21 by way. Now, is that clear to everybody? Let me just adjust the framing a little bit. It always comes up slightly different, but is that okay?
Yeah, I think it will do, unless somebody has a concern. I think from my end, I think it's visible. Yeah,
great. I'm sorry some of these pictures are a bit blurry, but that illustrates how old they are, because we've been around for 21 years. We're having our 22nd conference this year. And as you can see in this image with the sign, with the Walk 21 sign, is a small group of dedicated individuals, which is where Walk 21 started. And that small child with the red t-shirt, he's 6'3" now. And I wanted to particularly comment on that, because it feels like that this small group of individuals that made Walking 21 happen has gone from being a toddler to being a 6'3" teenager, almost starting to feel a little senior for some of us. But that commitment, that passion, that dedication can see the evolution of groups like this, because Walk 21 has never been a formalized association or alliance, or all those lovely descriptors that you use, Patrick, about the different ways that people come together. We have been we call it the Walk 21 family, but we have been a loose network, alliance of people that believe passionately in walking. And so I just want to share a little bit of our story. We started with an idea to have a conference, to start a conversation about something that nobody was talking about. And from there, we built a conference. People, that dedicated small group changed and evolved over time, but the conference grew. You can see in this image that we rolled out the red carpet to delegates to give them a sense of importance. From the conversations that happened at the conference, grew the need, and we've heard this already this morning, for shared messaging, for a coherent understanding and idea about how we should come together and how we should start advocating out into the world. And the International Charter for Walking, which was developed by Walk 21 in partnership with the International Federation of Pedestrians, captured the ideas that we were trying to grow and advocate for. And so I think I just need a new slide. The International Charter for Walking became a document that people could collect around. It gave people something to ask for when they wanted to go to their local authorities and say, we need to do something for walking, or local authorities were looking for understanding about what they could do for walking. The Charter started to capture some of those ideas. And as I said, it was built on a coalition approach through the conference series, through a very loose collection of people engaged. And it's grown over the years with signatories from the National Agency for Transport in New Zealand, the Mayor of London, different mayors across the world, local community groups, different organizations, to generate and demonstrate their commitment. So there's a way of engagement. But it wasn't enough to just have the ideas written down in a document. Albeit, actually, I just pick up on this. What was interesting, I'll come back to this slide. It wasn't enough to have the ideas written down in a document. And when I came on board with Walk 21, we needed to take those ideas and make them real for people. And we developed what we call the Walkability Masterclass with an organization in Canada called Canada Walks. And through the process of talking about walking, working together on projects and reporting on those projects, we grew local ambition for walking in communities all the way across Canada. So the Walk 21 approach has been to do creative outreach, but with tools and resources so that people can continue to work on these issues when we're no longer there, because we were only really small and we wanted to have a big impact. So Canada Walks, developed by Jackie Kennedy, grew out of conversations that happened at the Walk 21 conference. She grew a local organization in Canada, as did Dieter Schwab in Austria and various other places. And then she engaged with these different communities, and through this process of technical expertise and skills with the political leaders, the technical leaders, and the community leaders in these different towns, we gave them the resources to continue to advocate and work for walking. And particularly in Alberta, actually, a lovely gentleman called Graham, we did a whole series of train the trainer workshops there so that they could continue to develop that agenda and advocate for walking in their communities. The other thing we sought to do as an organization to have that impact and to operationalize those ideas, to make them real for people, was to develop up some tools and resources for that. So we developed Make Walking Count surveys so people could find out and understand about walking in their communities. We developed training and professional development classes. And over the years, we've developed up the global walking indicators, again, through workshops and conversations at our conferences. And that's evolving now into, as the technology moves on, into the app. The point of all of this is that it all starts with the commitment to do something, and then growing and fostering that commitment within the community. And I just wanted, let me see if I can go back a slide. What I wanted to pick up with this slide, which is really super relevant to this group, is that we wrote the International Charter for Walking to capture all the dimensions of what's needed for walking, from land use planning right down to promotion and local government authorities. When Meleki Kayesi was developing this new manual for the World Health Organization around pedestrian safety, which is one of the first documents for fostering our safe systems approach to our road safety system. And Geert van Weeg from the International Federation of Pedestrians was heavily involved in this. But Meleki came to the charter and he labeled it a comprehensive framework for safe walking. And I bring this out now because your coalition has all been about safety. Our coalition has all been about advocacy and promoting the value of walking and encouraging people to choose to walk. And what I see happening now, finally, with this safe systems approach, is we have to do both together. We have to, and that's exactly what Patrick's doing with this workshop. Find those unexpected alliances, find those opportunities for co-working on these topics. Oops, I'm going the wrong way now. Here we go. So following on from this, I wanted to capture that we started to then look at growing the global understanding of walking, because everyone localized it. Every time we came across a barrier, we had to find a way around it. So when people started saying there's no data, or there's no this, or there's no that, we would go looking for a means to capture that sense of global momentum for walking. So to bring my ideas together, because I don't want to take too much time, I want to open up to some questions, but I wanted to talk about a couple of things. So at Walk 21, we focused on the political agendas, we focused on professional development of tools, but we worked very much with the academics who come to the conference every year. We worked very much with the International Federation of Pedestrians, who led on bringing the advocacy side, supporting all the walking organizations in different countries around the world, giving them that peak presentation. We worked also then into lots of other partnerships, which we've learned from, like the SLOCAP partnership, Sustainable Low Carbon Transport Partnership, and they're working on the broader sustainable transport agenda. And so what I wanted to pick up on here was that we started by increasing the volume. The importance as a coalition or as a group is increase the volume of your conversation, and that's what we do through the conference every year. We create a place for people to come together. What's critical for us is that you feel celebrated. You get a chance to bond with all the people that you have a shared agenda. We're not trying to manage every single different corner of the momentum that is happening for walking and for cycling now. We don't need to manage all those corners. We just want to give them the sense of momentum and opportunity that they need to keep going. And that's why Juliet will talk about how we're doing that with the Africa Network next, but increasing that volume and that sense of importance and momentum. We've sought also to capture all the creative ideas. We haven't stuck with one idea about how to do walking. When the global agenda moves into sustainability or safety or decarbonization or tourism, we are there to bring walking into that conversation. We're there to find those ways of connecting with those agendas. And that's led to building all sorts of different new alliances and opportunities. So rather than us always just sitting waiting for people to come to us, you go out and find those new alliances. And I've seen that through the pandemic, when the opportunity to connect with people online has meant that you've been able to reach into corners. Financial Times contacted us to come and speak about walking on one of their transport, agendas. So these things emerge. I think it's really important, and it's important for us to make sure that we're aware of leaving a legacy. And this particularly comes from the conference, because we could just go into a city and leave again every year, but there's no point coming if we don't leave a legacy. And that's as important to us as having a strong event through the conference. And so identifying that and growing that with the local community, so that when the conference leaves town, I think that those footprints that you leave behind are critical here. Someone mentioned earlier about a strong secretariat. I'm absolutely in agreement with that. And you see that for this alliance with Lottie. We are growing that with the Africa Network, with Juliet, and growing that thing through the next 2 years, building this strong center of resources and information. You see it with the SlowCap partnership that's gone from strength to strength, with Gert's commitment to IFP and Mario. There's just a team of people sitting in the middle holding it together. It's critical to expand your audience. I've mentioned that before. Find those different opportunities to speak. I spoke at a winter cycling conference. Who would think that mattered? But it made connections, and it grew the attention. And ultimately, of course, find that common ground. So even when you're confronting somebody who you feel is completely opposed to your agenda, there must be some common ground. And I know that Mario talked about this a lot, that we could spend time fighting between walking and cycling, but we're fighting over the crumbs of public space, and we can form alliances there to approach the stronger challenge, which is around motorized modes versus walking and cycling. So these are just some of the ideas I wanted to share, because at Walk 21 we've used our conference very much as a way to grow momentum, to bring people in, to support them. And I just wanted to share with you that we are looking, we have it in Ireland this year. We're looking with the network to come to Africa next year, and to help this coalition grow that momentum for walking and cycling, albeit our focus is more on walking. So thank you so much for having me, Patrick. And I'm very happy to have a chat with anyone about some of those experiences.
Well, that is quite concise and very well put. Thank you so much, especially ending with those tips on really how, what things you can pick from there. I think from your presentation, I see several things that can be picked up by the African network, which basically is that we need, as that comprehensive framework, look at it more keenly, because initially I talked about that comprehensiveness, because the one major challenge would be like fragmented, disconnected, disjointed efforts. So if you have a comprehensive, I think that would be a very good way to begin. The next thing that I just picked was about, of course, flexibility and connecting to the agenda, so that, again, you're understanding the context and making sure that you're not running out with something that is already like old-fashioned or outdated, but looking at what are the trends and how can you connect with this trend, making sure that the agenda remains within the bigger agenda. And I think that's quite something. And thank you so much, Bronwyn. I think that actually has exceeded what I had expected in terms of that. And thank you so much for availing time and sharing your information. If we don't, do you have any question? There was some questions actually from the registration that are coming up, and I'll just ask one and before we go for break. So somebody in the registration was looking at, there is one, as we, and I think I began with this about resources as well as the commitment. How you leverage that. People can be committed, but resources are always a problem. So in Work 21, how did you mobilize, apart from the actual other resources like tools and toolkits for that, trainings, even doing those trainings and capacity building workshops, and even how difficult was it, the beginnings of that, in terms of, again, you have this commitment, but you need at least resources. How was that experience?
Yeah, so actually in the beginning with Walk 21, we subsidized the work we did for the commitment to walking and through the conference from some consultancy work that we were doing. So we started with that. The conference became self-supporting through the financing of the different people who supported that. And then as we grew the agenda, the sort of the broadening and development of those tools and resources, we would work with local coalitions or with different agencies to put together funding packages to build and grow those resources. And in fact, Walk 21 became a charity, registered charity foundation in 2017, again, to grow the opportunities for that resourcing and to address the needs that were being answered. But the reality is, in the beginning, it was the dedication of just the individuals giving of their time and effort to make something happen. But it does. The critical thing was to find the things that people might fund as well. So, you know, go and have those conversations, go and grow the sort of the story around, is it about capacity building? Is it about tools or resources or training? Is it about delivering actual physical change on the ground? And for example, with our work that we did in Lagos with La Mata and in Medellin, Colombia, making sure that you brought everyone together before you got started. So we got the community, the politicians' commitment to follow through when they asked for something to get that delivered. So growing all of that, connecting those people before you actually undertake the project was crucial, because then they can liberate some resources to support you as well.
Thank you very much. I think that question was from one of the people here. So before we go for break, Emmanuel, you have something to say, and then we'll have a 10 minutes break, come back for the next remaining session. So Emmanuel, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Bronen. Good to meet you again on this platform. I am Emmanuel from Abuja, Nigeria. I'm the president of Africa Urban Cycling Organization, which is a coalition. And then I'm also the president of the coalition of road safety NGOs in Nigeria. I have been involved in advocacy, building coalitions for upward of 11 years at different platforms, the Open Streets, different coalitions. And one thing I've come to realize is the general tendencies for individuals to want to be the most loudest person within the coalition. Individuals trying to impose themselves, or somebody trying to claim ownership. It's a very popular thing in virtually all the coalitions I've had privilege of being involved in. And so, do you have this experience, and to what extent or how have you been able to manage it?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because probably somebody would say that I've been that person trying to be the loud one in the conversation. But that's because I'm surrounded by the airline industry or the freight industry or all the bigger players in the transport sector. So sometimes that louder voice is really important to put at the table, to be heard in the context where perhaps particularly for walking, you haven't been valued even as a mode of transport, let alone as something to be invested in. But I would suggest for the sort of the more of the group dynamic around the coalition building, our approach is to have that shared agenda, the charter, the opportunities, and there's so many opportunities, there's so much work to do. We don't have to compete for the space. We can enable people to take the piece that they want and to run with that. But if you have that clear messaging in the middle, give the loud voice something to do and go and take that energy in a direction, and then support the others to come into the space and share their ideas as well. But I think it is really, it's that shared understanding of what you're doing, but allowing the individuals to run with their different energies. It's not a bad thing having loud voices when you're trying to be heard on these, because lots of people are heard just by their sheer status in the system. It's just channeling that energy into the right right place. Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Manuel. I think, yeah, that's I think it's quite pertinent to mention that. And so is there any burning question that before I let Bron go? All right.
I just wanted to raise one quick thing, and I know this is language that is used quite a lot, but just this idea around co-creation of things, you know, like I think if we talk a lot about having this thing in the middle, this shared agenda, but if you bring people on board with you while you develop that, then they already are finding their place in it to go and build on that idea. But not everybody has something to bring to the table. They're waiting for that direction. So the co-creation process allows them to learn along the way, and for those loud voices to be heard, so that at the end you have a balanced product.
Thank you. And your last point there, I know it's going to be picked up with Juliet on, you know, I could see that there was fear. You are saying, can you handle this? Then somebody says not yet, because they're not sure. But we need the co-creating process to involve people, so that when the commitment comes, you're understanding the scope and what you expected, and maybe I think that will come out clearly. If there's I think I want us to take a short break, and when we come back, I think let the conversation keep broadening, and also making sure that we have no doubts. That's why we are here for this workshop. I want us to come back at exactly 20 past the hour. 20 past the hour. It's where I am right now. It's 10 minutes past 1. So we're coming back 20 past 1, where I am, East Africa time. And we'll pick up from there. Just, you can stay online, you stay online, and we are open, so that we'll begin exactly 20 past for our next session. So can take a short breather, be back shortly.
Patrick, I'm really happy to talk to Prince. I can't see all that. Prince Achiogu, if he wants to chat while we have a break, yeah?
I think that's fine, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, you can chat with the Prince and whoever else that they want, okay? Right, welcome back for those who are already in. We are going to the next session, and I think it is quite key that we have the African Network for Walking and Cycling as relatively new formation, and we are going to hear more about the plan. And to take us through this, I'll invite the coordinator, Juliet Rita. Juliet, you have about 15 to 20 minutes to give us an overview of the ANWAC plan. Please welcome.
Thank you very much, Patrick. It's an honor to be here, and I hope you can hear me well.
Yes.
Let me just project the presentation. Is it clear on your end?
Yes, actually, it's quite well. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much once again. I'm Juliet Rita, and I'm the network coordinator for the African Network for Walking and Cycling. The network was formed during the COVID era. It was convened on October 2020, with the main goal being to contribute to making the life of people that walk and cycle in Africa safe, healthier, and more comfortable through combined actions and expertise and influence. I think this is where all the aspects of coalition come in terms of trying to pull together efforts so that we can achieve a common goal. So the network really serves as a platform to champion best practice and influence research, policy, and practice, and strengthen partnerships and share experiences and knowledge. So this is really just offering a network, a platform for organizations and individuals working and cycling in Africa. So the main objectives of the network are to strengthen cooperation between network members to influence walking and cycling decision making and approaches in Africa. We are also looking very keen in terms of sharing knowledge, data, resources between network members, and joint advocacy and communication on key issues at global, regional, and national levels, as well as building capacity and strengthening the Africa response to the needs of pedestrians and cyclists. So the main big idea is we have all these members bringing in whatever they are working on different areas of walking and cycling. These have to be either organizations or experts, individual experts working actively in Africa. So we are trying to tap into the existing knowledge, into the data, into the resources that all our members are bringing in, just to make each and everyone's work much easier, more coordinated, and with less effort. And also really coming in to have what we call the key messaging or the joint advocacy, so that we are really putting up what Bronwen was terming as that loud noise. So over and above, also we are looking at how we can build each other, how we can strengthen each other, either through knowledge sharing or even sharing technical expertise. So our approach really is that one of trying to accommodate everyone, yet operating within a framework so that more or less we have a clear direction, but we really call for flexibility so that everyone is able to participate actively in the network and operate within the framework, yet have that flexibility. So also the members were really looking for a platform where they can work together on projects, most suitable, of course, to the network approach. That goes back to having that broad framework. But say if you have an organization or an individual working on something that pertains walking and cycling, they can see how they can have that synergy, bringing the energy between those individual experts or other organizations so that you can have that working together. Sorry, Patrick, there's someone else who is muted and is bringing in a bit of noise.
It's Prince. Prince, if you can mute your microphone, please. Thank you. Sorry about that, Juliet, go ahead.
No, thank you very much, Patrick. So what we are looking for is the network is really, as I said, is bringing in organizations and individual experts. So we have our members drawn from international organizations and NGOs, local organizations, including civil society. We have members from academia, research institutions, and researchers, national and city governments. We have financial institutions, as well as members who are in private sector. So really, how we are trying or working together is we have structured the network into 7 working groups. Each of the 7 groups has a different sector or a different area that they're looking at. And what we have done, as I said in the beginning, is have that broad framework, yet that flexibility. So we are very open for a member of the network to be in one or even more than one of the working groups. And they can be active members or they can choose to be observers, just taking a back seat and following through the happenings of the working group. Of course, we appreciate at the very beginning when you're forming when we are forming the network, because as I said, the initiative came October 2020, so it's just, we could say it's a year old, thereabout. So we have a lot of members just sitting back and watching what is going to happen, what are the activities that are coming up. so that they can see how to actively participate. We do allow that flexibility of moving in between the groups, of being in one or more of the groups. You can be active in some groups. You can follow just as an observer in some of the groups. So just to highlight the key member roles. So of course, also we have our lead agency, which is the UN Environment Program, or what we call the UNEP, Share the Road Program. So they convene the network and assume a great responsibility for its operation and overall leadership and guidance. So this comes in handy, especially in terms of just providing the necessary resources to get moving. Then we have the chair of the network, who is drawn from WAP 21 Foundation, and that is Ms. Bronwen, who made a presentation before our break. So our work, really, the WAP 21 Foundation is coming in to help us coordinate our activities, as well as just chair and offer general direction in terms of guiding the work groups. Then we have members, and these are drawn from organizations. As I had highlighted earlier, we have people from different sectors and individuals who have agreed to join the network and are committed to its goals and objectives. So to this end, we have 7 working groups. We have the nexus between research and practice, which is really trying to build that connection or have that bridge between what is required on the ground in terms of what is practically needed in walking and cycling, and what our researchers are doing, what information is already available, and how we can share that information across board between research and practice when it comes to areas of walking and cycling in Africa. Then we have the second group, which is very key, because most of the time, and especially in African cities, the shortcoming has always been in terms of financing. And also financing comes in also in trying to get organizations moving that are advocating for walking and cycling. So this is the working group that is really looking at the modalities of how to get that moving. Then we have working group 3, which offers government support and financing for walking and cycling. So this now cascades from group 2 and looks at what efforts need to be done to really coordinate and support governments in Africa so that they can carry out what we are advocating for in walking and cycling. We have group 4, which is focused on data for walking and cycling, and that's just about it in terms of really getting that database going, what information is available, and of course, all the working groups will be tapping into the sort of data that we are getting from working group 4. Then we have working group 5, building capacity for local NGOs and civil society. And working group 5 is the one that works closely with the Global Alliance for NGOs in road safety. And our chair is Engineer Emmanuel, who is going to make a presentation just after me. So this is the group that is really looking at what NGOs are involved, either directly or indirectly, in matters of walking and cycling, and how we can build their capacity so that they can really take up their role in walking and cycling. Of course, we have to acknowledge that walking and cycling has to be complemented by other sustainable modes of transport, and that's where working group 6 comes in, looking at sustainable public transportation and what initiatives need to be done in that area, as well as looking at rural mobility, how is walking and cycling in rural mobility, which are the organizations that are working in rural mobilities, and how we can come in just to support these initiatives. So really our big plan, the big plan that we have so far, of course, this is work in progress. This is our first work plan in general. So we have a lot going on in terms of creating a database and just mapping where we are. So we're hoping to have, as a network, one point where you can come in, see who is working in walking and cycling in Africa, see what kind of research is there in walking and cycling in Africa, and see basically relevant data that would be beneficial to build your capacity as an organization, as an NGO, as a civil society, just giving you some sort of resources that you can start off with. We are really looking at joint advocacy, as I had said initially, and the idea is just to have everyone coming in with their key messages, their key areas that they want to be to have influence on, especially in walking and cycling, and seeing how best then we can reach key influencers and how we can drive that agenda for walking and cycling in Africa. So the big idea also is just to just acknowledge that most of the organizations and individuals maybe do not have all those resources in terms of pushing for advocacy. So if we are able to pull in together, first of all, we are going to avoid duplication, and also we are going really to tap into the limited resources and drive our key messages. So over time, of course, we expect to tie in issues of research and publication. And key is for us, I think the key thing that came out from all the working groups was that need to make walking and cycling more backable. And what I mean by backable is having clear indicators for walking and cycling that you can even be able to package together and put out there so that you can get financing directly for walking and cycling projects. And we can also push our governments to include walking and cycling projects, especially when they're doing major infrastructure projects such as roads. We are also seeking that collaboration and partnerships. Yes, we acknowledge as a network, we have already pulled in people, we have pulled in organizations working in walking and cycling, but we are also trying to see how we can complement each other as organizations by creating partnerships that would influence funding and implementations of walking and cycling projects, as well as seeing how best we can bring in government, and especially city governments in Africa, into the network so that we can really push that message of walking and cycling. So I'll just want to highlight in terms of exactly what Working Group 5 is planning to do in their work plan for this year. And Working Group 5, as I said, is the one that is looking at building capacity for NGOs and civil societies. And really, they're starting off by wanting to map out the NGOs and civil societies working in transport, and that's mostly in walking and cycling, and their data needs. So the big idea is to identify who is working already in initiatives that are directly or indirectly related to walking and cycling in Africa, and what kind of data do they require. And when we are looking at data, we are looking at information that they may require for their operations. And just to give a simple idea would be, say, you have a new NGOs that probably is looking for funding, and they don't have technical data or indicators that they can use to beef up their technical proposal so as to get funding. So that's the kind of database that we're looking at having, so that you can really tap in, coming back again, get basic data and use it to build up your proposal as an NGO or a civil society. And we're also looking at having that partnership that we can offer technical support. And this would come in again in terms of resources, the labor force. We acknowledge maybe not all the NGOs or civil society will have the resources to hire, say, an engineer on board, to hire an urban planner on board, a designer on board. So how can we create that synergy that you can offer technical support across the board? And of course, that sharing of information through a series of capacity building webinars for winning knowledge sharing, for information dissemination, as well as data acquisition. And the main end game is to launch a database with relevant information and data needs that NGOs and civil societies can then tap in. So that's about it in terms of the general idea of what we are working on as a network and the working groups that we have. As I said, we have 7 working groups that are really working towards having more initiative and more coordinated efforts in walking and cycling in Africa. So I think the key message is not really waiting to see if you are out there as an organization, as an individual that you're working in walking and cycling. I encourage you just to jump in and see how we can work together as a network, whether you have something to bring on board or you feel you're still working on an idea, a big idea. It's also a place where you can interact with other people and see how best you can really bring out your initiatives. So thank you very much, Patrick. And I think we are looking forward to greater and stronger coalitions. Thank you.
And thank you too, Juliet. I think that overview is quite important. And one of the main reasons why we are requesting for that overview for this group was because some may be aware of the ANWAC, which is, as I said, relatively new, but in terms of the projections and the organization, I think it's of quite, it will be quite very useful vehicle, especially for advocacy for NGOs. And looking at working group 5, I'm sure maybe some participants here have questions like, so how do I join group 5? How do I go about knowing, because some are knowing it for the first time, and I know some of our NGOs attended last year's first conference. So maybe you can begin by that, how to get hold of you and how to know more information about ANWAC.
Thank you very much, Patrick. I'll share in the chat box my email address, as well as our social media handle and the link that you can use for joining in the network. Of course, if anyone wants to have more information, maybe they want to receive the detailed terms of reference, then again, they can reach to me via email, and I'll be happy to help them with that information. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Juliet, for that. Before we conclude that session, I want to invite some few questions. I see, Gert, you have your hand up, and thank you for joining today. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. I'm Geert van Waak from the International Federation of Pedestrians. Very interesting what I'm hearing here. But we're always talking about cyclists and pedestrians as kind of a group of people. And then we need to do exactly what Bronwyn says. We need to kind of start being the loud voice in meetings, especially with road authorities, and say, hey, think about us, think about cyclists, think about the pedestrians, leave some financing for us and things like that. But many of those people, I mean, road builders, road authorities, cities even, they are often busy with much more important things than just pedestrians or cyclists, and they were working with growth and the economy and all those kind of things. So one of the things I have not heard here this morning is kind of, instead of looking at people, that's my phone. Instead of people looking always as other pedestrians, other cyclists, they as car drivers, whatever there is, thinking more about modal shifts. And that is something which we at the International Federation of Pedestrians have been working quite a lot on, modal shifts as well for society, as for road safety, as for carbon, as for whatever you want to have. Like, for example, in the Stockholm Declaration, we did put in the importance of modal shifts for road safety. We are currently working together with the European Cyclist Federation and UITP, which considers the public transport at the next UN declaration to really push in there also the value of modal shifts. And so at that moment, you bring people not kind of, I mean, I need to build a road, I mean, and there is not much space, so I cannot give space to the pedestrians and the cyclists. While if you're thinking about these engineers, one of their problems is, especially in the cities, congestion. How am I going to solve congestion? Not by giving meters to pedestrians and cyclists. On the other hand, if I can get some of those car drivers walking or cycling, there are less cars and I have less congestion. So by pushing on modal shift, by positioning modal shifts, you can basically rather than having to push them to get some money for cycle and pedestrians, you can basically say, oh, where can I put, how can we do that so that more people will be invited for cycling and walking? And that is something which in a number of cities, everywhere in the world, we are seeing this kind of modal shift helping also congestion, helping other things. So I would just recommend, let's push much more on that one. Thank you.
And thank you very much. Actually, you have answered one of the questions that was on the registration, because somebody was asking in the strategy that can help to change people from private cars, not private cars, to walking and cycling or use more public transport. And I think the answer is modal shift. But I think that term modal shift, in a sense, requires more capacity. Because as you're saying, engineers, different players, they say, okay, so what do you want? And you have described scenarios where there's lesser space, we need a road, yet we have walking and cycling. So that conflict, I think there is one thing that I think we need to really like interrogate when you say modal shift. And I'm saying this, God, because in Africa, for example, walking and cycling is not the in thing, it's not a good thing. Traditionally, right? So when you tell people, okay, now my ambition would be like to buy a car and be seen to it. So how do you really like address those culturally? And I'm saying that just to ask you if you have any idea of how do you change that cultural shift for modal shift?
Yes, absolutely. Because if you position we the pedestrians, we the poor people that cannot afford a car and those kind of things, then you put yourself in a very weak position. And then you put also from, okay, give us some crumbles. Also, Brandon mentioned it. And then we can fight between cyclists and pedestrians for these little crumbles that we get. Where if you just say no, it's an active choice. I mean, you and I in the morning, we need to go somewhere. We decide how are we going to do that. And depends on, is there a car available or no car available? Is there a bus available? Is there no bus available? Can I safely walk there? Is there, I mean, all those kind of things. So look at people as multimodal people and then kind of make them, nudge them into the right direction. And it's going to be different in different countries. I mean, in the Western world, we have more, when we're talking about modal shift, we're more talking about modal shifts away from private car back to cycling and walking, while in a number of African countries, I could imagine it is more just keeping a hold on the share of walking you have today, increase the cycling share probably, but I mean, don't push everyone in a car, because you push people in a car by not providing them safety on the roads. I mean, how am I going to bring my kids to school if it is unsafe? By car, of course, then we have a box and then they're safe. As a father, I am doing the right thing to bring them. While if you just say, okay, if you can have them walking or cycling, if that is safe, inviting, then finally they can do it on their own. So it's really positioning that way you should be doing, I think.
Thank you very much. I think to advance this discussion further and to break it more into what now we are, what you have described, that we have Emmanuel and Dr. Franz, who are going to look at specifically about harnessing those best practices that are already existing in Africa, and also looking at what are the barriers, the barriers to implementing these cycling initiatives, active mobility. So in our next session, and I think this session, Emmanuel, I know you are an engineer, so many questions will be coming on your side. And I want just to let everyone, let's move to the next session, and please prepare your questions as Emmanuel and Dr. Franz, they present. And yes, involve us. And I think myself, I have also very many questions. So let's keep the conversation moving on. And over to you, Emmanuel.
Thank you very much, Patrick, for a very wonderful coordination since the program started this morning. I am delighted to quickly share my slide now to begin this session. Africa Urban Cycling Organization is an umbrella body of cycling advocacy groups from around Africa. It was incorporated in 2018, and we have members from different countries of Africa. And by virtue of our incorporation, we are members of the World Cycling Alliance, and the president automatically is the representative of Africa on the board of the World Cycling Alliance. So I am the board member from Africa and therefore the vice president of the World Cycling Alliance. Like Juliet also said earlier, I chair the capacity building for NGOs and civil society work group within the African Network for Walking and Cycling. So the content of this presentation begins with introduction, then we have a slide on equitable city, and then what the entire world is saying concerning cycling, and then we looked at a survey on barriers to cycling in Africa, and then we analyze the barriers, and then conclusion. So that's a bit of the outline for the presentation.
Okay, I am ready. From my end, if you can stop sharing your screen.
Okay, okay. So you can go ahead.
Yeah, thank you.
Super. Yes. Thank you, Patrick. I will query my computer immediately after this program. All right, so this is next slide. Okay, so Africa is currently developing in a more car-centric way than sustainable systems. And like I said here, the car-centric question has a lot to do with the socioeconomic and health status of African residents. I've always told the story of this young lady who lives in the city of Abuja, some kilometers away from the city center, and spends 2 hours coming in the morning, 2 hours going back every evening. And ironically, she and her children, they eat their breakfast in the car coming to the office, and had to eat the dinner in the car going back home because it is difficult for her to wait to take breakfast because she'll be late for office, and she can't put the children in the school within her neighborhood. So because there'll be nobody to pick them after class. As a result, transport has stolen their lives. So the car-centric issue is quite a concern that we need to deal with, and bicycles is one of the low-hanging fruits that we can take advantage of. Next slide. Next slide, Patrick. Okay. And then we all can see the fact that 80% of urban dwellers cannot afford a car. I quoted this from Professor Charles Soludo, one of his COVID-19 articles where he analyzed some factors in Africa, and 80% of those who live in cities in Africa cannot afford a car. And UN Habitat had said repeatedly that another 70% are either walking or cycling, not because they want to, but because it's the only choice they have. Yet, all transport developments are car-centric. And that leaves us with this huge burden of poor quality of life, consistent congestion because we think building infrastructure alone addresses the problem, loss of time in traffic, pollution, though not as bad as the rest of the world, but going by the pace of car-centric development, it is expected that our carbon footprint will go beyond the proportion if nothing is done urgently to stem it, because currently we have the highest rate of car growth across all regions of the world. Social inclusion deepens, lost investment potentials because who wants to invest in a city where he cannot move safely and smoothly? High transportation costs on families and individuals, road crashes, of course. At the center of all of this is road crashes that kills multitudes of people every year in Africa. A wholesome 40% of all fatalities are pedestrians, and another 5% are cyclists that are killed in urban environments, and having 26.6 people dying per 100,000 population, the highest risk fatality risk across the entire regions of the world. It means that we need to do something very quickly. Next slide, Patrick. And that brings us to the need to build cities where everybody have ownership, a missing ingredient in our development system. We have cities where the car seem to own the city. In Abuja, for instance, there is a policy that if you are building an estate, 30% of the land area must be reserved for the car. And that includes car parks and roads within the estate. And I think it's not different in many cities of Africa. But if we can build cities that belongs to all, in that case, you are putting public transport, cycling and walking as primary means of movement. And then we could have one or two cars, those who say they can't do without it, to continue to use it. And the reason is because the world exists for people. So are cities and their mobility system. The world is not for cars. The mobility system is not for the car. Next slide. So, does it really matter? The answer is yes. All the benefits of sustainable urban mobility responds to a cycling city. Not even public transport on its own can deliver all of those benefits as outlined here by Tumi, from the different perspectives, energy security, economic development, quality of life, environmental protection, and all of those. There is no form of no form of transport that can deliver this outside cycling. And this is why it is no longer about what we want to do, what we are willing to do. It is that it has become a necessity for us to invest in cycling. Next slide. And then all global developmental indicators in the past years have pointed to one thing: cycling. From 2002 that the World Bank brought out this report on cities on the move till date, there is hardly any global developmental outcome reports, indices, and documents that has not pointed to cycling as a necessity. From the UN Secretary General's high-level committee that was set up, that came out with this report. Inside that report, the word sustainable transport was defined. And if you check this definition as it is, there is no mode of transport that gives you the answer that fits in. You cannot say you have a sustainable transport outside cycling. And so the Sustainable Development Goals, the urban agenda, the new urban agenda, the global status report on road safety, transport and climate change status report, the world population report, and all, there is hardly any that you won't point to cycling as a necessity. For instance, the decade of action on road safety, among the 5 issues that are the focus of the plan of action, is the need for cycling. For instance, Love 30, one of the demand of Love 30, the benefits of Love 30 is the fact that it must allow for cycling and walking in cities. And it is not saying make cycling safe. It is saying invest in cycling so that people can move away from the car into cycling. And that way, the safety number hypothesis can come to play. Next slide. So, and that gives birth to what we have in 2018 when the World Cycling, the World Cycling Day was declared by the United Nations. So everybody is talking cycling, yet we are not seeing cycling growing. Efforts are here and there, but to what extent are these efforts delivering? Next slide, please. And so during the Africa Sustainable Urban Mobility course in 2020, we had a course to ask participants. There were participants from at least 30 countries of Africa in that program. And we decided to ask them, why is cycling development poor in Africa? We also asked them, why is African residents not cycling enough? And we got these responses. For instance, in terms of development of cycling systems, 21% says policy is the issue. That if we can put sufficient policy in place, cycling will come alive. But look at 32 there, which is knowledge and awareness. The participants in that program, who were about 161 from different countries of Africa, says there is no sufficient knowledge to deliver sustainable transport, particularly cycling. Those in authorities don't know. You can't blame the decision maker for not deciding for what you want. The reason is simple. He doesn't know what you are talking. And in one of the slides in the future, I mentioned the fact that that the man visited Amsterdam and saw people riding bicycle doesn't mean he knows it. So that gap in capacity is one of the limitations. Then, so number one reason for the cycling development that is poor in Africa is a lack of knowledge and awareness. Number two is policy, the gaps in policy development. And then number three is political will. And this a bit contradicts one of the reports I saw from UN Habitat, where it was emphasized that political will is number one on the ladder. In this case, it is not. The people who were present in the program said, no, it's not political will. The political will would have been there if the politician is very much aware and grounded on the benefits that cycling can offer to him, he probably would decide in the positive. Then we have 13 there, which is I missed that. Okay. Then 8% says we need champions. The absence of champions in cities is one of the major reasons why people are not cycling. As Africans, the one thing is very paramount to us. What our leaders do, we want to do. So if a champion is leading the way, there are tendencies to want to ride bicycle. Then we ask, why are African residents not cycling enough? Number one reason from this survey says infrastructure, which goes along with safety. Infrastructure, the provision of cycling facilities, the provision of intersections that give priority to cyclists, and all of those are primary reasons why people don't ride bicycle. Number two, next on to that is, again, champions. The availability of champions that will stand in front for others to follow. And then we have, following that is policy and enforcement, and then knowledge sharing again. So let's look at these issues differently as they are. Please, next slide. So mindset, I just captioned some quotes here to give us an idea of what these mindset issues are. The bicycle is symptomatic of poverty. This is a regular thing I hear in almost every advocacy programs I go. Just as the car is a status symbol. everybody that sees the car thinks is a symbol of affluence. You can't be walking in town and then you return to the village to see your parents and you say, I just bought a new bicycle. They will think poverty has just overtaken you. But if you come back and you say, I just bought a car, everybody celebrates. And so you have situations where a particular incident I witnessed, not that I was told, where this young man started work, he collected loan from the bank, collected loan from the office cooperative, and then bought a car that even the two loans put together could not afford. So he bought a car still owing the owner of the car, all because he needed to own a car to prove a point that he has arrived. And to that extent, I had situations where this young man will sleep in the car in the office because there is no money to fuel the car to take it back home. Because we have created wealth, created the car to look like the evidence of wealth and affluence. And we must go away from that. And then look at this, came from a professor of transport geography. My sincere apologies to professors on this platform, including my friend, Dr. Franz. A professor of transport geography told me this. He said, how can you be advocating for bicycle in 2019? This was 3 years ago. When the rest of the world is talking about flying cars, it is retrogression. Now, a professor of transport geography who sits on government panels on transport, who takes decision, and when he speaks, they consider him as an authority in transport, is the one making this comment. Then you are talking about a politician who have no idea what we're talking about. So this is where the issues are. And then we have the next one, cycling. Cycling is not gorgeous for women, men of class. And I was asking the other day, what else is more gorgeous than a woman dressed in suit, wearing skirt and sitting on the bicycle with her handbag like Amanda Ngabirano of Uganda has always done. And then it disvirgin, that spelling is disvirgin. In Uganda, somebody told me it disvirgins young ladies. So the parents will never allow a young lady to ride a bicycle for one reason, it disvirgins them, which is not true. Our dresses don't agree with cycling. The weather is not comfortable. There can be 1,000 reasons. It's all about the mindset. The day your mind accepts cycling, you don't see all of these reasons. And then somebody says cycling is not safe. And many times I've said that those who say cycling is not safe, they've never tried it, so they have no idea. You don't rescue a man swimming in the pool by reading a book, by writing on the book. You jump into the river. So to prove that cycling is not safe, get into the road. And so as a matter of advocacy, I do that from time to time to stay on the road, irrespective of the inconveniences. Of course, it's not safe. And I also said there is no mode of transport that is safe. If it is so safe, why are we having 1.3 million people dying every year across the world? So, next slide. Policy, standards, manuals, and enforcement tools are a lacking ingredient, like it was noted in that survey. Very few countries have a national policy on cycling. Even more few are cities having policies and standards and manuals on cycling. The same with street designs and standards. Where either or both exist, there is the lack of enforcement tools, so cyclists are largely unsafe. A policy provides a sense of commitment and puts everyone on the notice that, look, we own this transport system together. We own this road together. But when it is not there, the car owner just simply thinks that the road belongs to him. Speeding, for instance, is one of the greatest challenges to cycling in cities. The UN Decade of Action for Road Safety 2021 to 2030 has recommended the fact that cities should be 30 kilometers per hour. I've had a series of workshops on this, both in Nigeria and regionally. And many cities and many countries have refused to adopt this up to this moment. And so cycling has remained largely unsafe because of speed of vehicles in urban centers. And so cities would rather build wide road for speeding cars than narrowing the road, reducing the speed, and turn the city into a city for people. Each national systems must build coalition to advocate and pursue this. Next slide. Infrastructure, I've mentioned earlier, in the absence of policies and design standards, or in inefficiency of it, we can't talk about infrastructure. So you don't even blame the man who did not put cycling as part of the budget. He couldn't have done that when there is no policy giving direction to it. And so these are basics that we must deal with. If you design for people, you get people. If you design for cars, you get cars. What you have designed for is what you currently have. And until we change that perception, developing policies and setting agenda, then cycling may not appear in our budgets. Infrastructure can return the city back to the people if we modify them appropriately. Next slide. Funding. I submitted myself and my team. We had a meeting with the Minister of Federal Capital Territory, that's Abuja. Abuja doesn't have a governor, it has a minister who serves on behalf of the president to administer the city. So we did a study on one of the lanes in Abuja. And we went to visit him, and we presented our proposals asking for recovery of cycle lanes on some streets. And this was his comment. We have not finished dealing with very important issues. And you are talking about investing in cycling? So to him, cycling doesn't appear in the list of 20 important things, maybe not 40, maybe not 100. And this may not be different in every other African country because there are gaps. Government funding is a function of political will, rooted in a positive mindset and guided by in-depth knowledge of the benefits. So we need to follow the processes if we must arrive at the visions that we have. There are competing demands for the slim resources. Cycling is not on the top of the agenda. And until we get it there, we may not get what we want. We need to develop strong economic study outcomes with advocacy that makes sense to change the narrative. But it has been proven that developmental partners, investors, and other funders are more keen to put their money into cycling when there is proven government commitment in form of policies and documents that show their commitment. Next slide. Political will, like I said, is always a necessity. It is like the wheel of a car. The car moves nowhere except you have it. Our political system is made of strong people, not institutions. Hence, to get it, you need a political system, the politicians to agree. Why we build coalitions to get attention? What if cycling advocates and experts choose to also become politicians? Probably they will make greater impact. Or maybe when political decisions become evidence-based, objective will thrive, objectivity will thrive, and evidence-based cycling proposals will gain attention. Next slide. Knowledge. The absence or limited knowledge has been adjudged the most important factor against cycling development in Africa based on that study. If you know better, you will behave better. Don't crucify the decision maker for saying no. Sorry, that spelling is no to cycling initiatives. What does he or she know about cycling? Like I said earlier, traveling to Amsterdam, seeing cycling thrive does not mean he knows the depth of the benefits he can get from riding bicycle. For somebody, that is a European idea. Somebody have told me that before. It's a European idea. Let's build capacity of decision makers, politicians, everybody in the some value chain, and things will change over time. SSATP, which is one of the initiatives of the World Bank in Africa, had noted that the same cities where personnel capacity changed significantly in Africa are the same cities where positive changes have happened in sustainable transport. Next slide. This is my second to the last slide. We need champions. These are no grammar about it. There's an African adage that said, if the king leaves his throne and takes the dance floor, you will be a fool to be standing still as one of his subjects. It is common sense that when our leaders take the lead, we are likely to want to follow. And in Nigeria, we've had one Osita Chidoka, who was commercial of the Federal Road Safety Corps, took the lead practically in cycling. He cycled to everywhere. And within his tenure, while he was there, we started the National Bicycle Week. We designed the first draft national cycling policy and strategy. We took different steps, getting all stakeholders involved, and then his tenure ended, and the project all ended because one man saw the need for it. And as soon as he left, everything collapsed. We saw the president of Paul Kagame of Rwanda doing a few things there. And then there is this particular rally that is always led by the president of Egypt. Please, next slide. He leads some rallies by himself. There is no way the leader that you have is in front and others who want to do it. Next slide. Next slide. As I attempt to conclude, many workshops and engagement sessions are held across Africa in the past few years on cycling and other some options. Thanks to UNEP, UN Habitat, SSATP, World Bank, ITDP, and similar organizations who are doing great things in terms of enhancing knowledge and capacity. But if all participants return with the fire they caught at those meetings, things would have changed by now. So if after this meeting, nothing changes in your pursuit to achieve cycling in your city, it was a waste having you. Thank you very much. Next slide, which is the last. Thank you, thank you. Permit me, this is the end of the first paper, which I had the privilege of presenting, and I think we're open for questions, comments, and observations, general discussion before we call the next presentation. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Emmanuel. Your presentation, part of it was very captivating, also with a lot of things to smile and to be happy, to be sad, and so on. And I'm sure I can see some people commenting on that. One comment, of course, is that mindset presentation you have given is a good reflection of Africa. So the mindset, and it was making me just also smile and laugh a bit. But yes, we have about 3 minutes of questions for that session. Then we shall invite Dr. Franz for the next session. Any comments, any reaction, any reflections you have opened? The floor is open. Raise your hand and then we can hear your views. So I'm taking it that people are digesting a little bit. So as the professor gets ready for the next session, just also keep the chat. If you have any reflection, maybe you're not able to use your microphone, but you can put on the chat any question, reflection, or comments, because as Engineer Emmanuel says, we don't want to leave empty from this workshop. What can we carry and what can we actually apply and implement in this? So, so you want the last slide again? Oh, Emmanuel, contact. Emmanuel, can you put on the chat your contact?
Okay, my contact.
Yeah, people are asking your contact. Maybe you can put on the chat. They'll be able to copy there.
Okay.
Great. Okay, Brett, you have a question, and then we'll move to the next session. Okay, go ahead.
Not really a question, just a comment that Engineer Emmanuel just nailed it as far as capacity is concerned. I think this has been a conversation we've had, even Patrick. Sometimes you are flogging a horse that will not move because the capacity is limited. So I think if we focus on building a little more of capacity, especially at the policy level, then we might begin to start seeing a lot more of results than when we just assume that the people in power are not doing what you expect them to do. And sometimes it's just because they've done everything they know how to do. So I'm really intrigued and appreciative of that fact that there's great need of building capacity at that policy level. So mine was just a comment.
Absolutely, and it's quite a good comment there. Capacity, so that you don't flog the host to some ideas. All right, I think with that, Bright, thank you. I want to usher in Dr. Franz, introduce yourself, and then take us through the next about 15 minutes, and then we can open the questions as we edge towards the end. So if you want to share your presentation, you can try. If not, then you can send it. But I'll give you this opportunity now to take the floor.
Yes, we're good to go.
You're good to go.
Okay, thank you very, very much for this opportunity. I am asked to present harnessing cycling best practices projects and pilot scheme from selected African countries. Yeah, despite I use the word gory picture painted by Engineer Emmanuel, despite those cultural variations and apathy people have and mindset or misconceptions people have towards cycling, cycling is very, very popular in Nigeria. Like as he has mentioned, not for the purpose of as a means of recreation, but in most rural communities, it's just for the purpose of as an alternative means of transportation. But fortunately, ICO is concerned about urban cycling and not on rural cycling. But all the same, we have a lot of progress being done in terms of cycling. So in this presentation, we'll be doing some kind of perusal to see the role that cycling is playing and what actually cycling is doing, and most importantly, the benefits advocacy and coalition is paying as far as cycling is concerned in some African countries. As some of us may already know, cycling covers or delivers, or the derivative of cycling essentially sits in the level of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And so making cycling not an option, but more or less like a necessity for many. But because of policies and some other situational variables, which I could regard as environmental factors, it's not making us to see the growth we anticipate to see in cycling. We envisage that by maybe 2034, yes, we must have got things like cycling lane in almost all the major cities, and we'll have more persons cycling to work and back from work. But we are not getting it. But that does not mean that we are not making progress. We are making progress comparing to what we used to have in the past. Agreed, the cities have metamorphosed from a cycling-dominated city to a motor city. You know, prior to this time, when you graduate from work and you have a job, maybe in the government, they give you a bicycle loan. They give you a bicycle loan because bicycle was the main means of transportation. But today, people source for car loan. And so you talk of bicycle lane, they laugh at you and they make mockery of you because you don't know what you're talking about. So if we really want to transit from where we are now into the future, then we must make a deliberate attempt or deliberate approach to be able to transit from making our cities more cycling friendly than what it used to be today. Interestingly to note, some African countries have heeded this call and they've made some remarkable progress. Well, whether these efforts are best practice or not is a matter of debate someday later. But at least it is important for us to equally note that much effort has been done and some countries have taken the lead in promoting serious work on urban cycling. Well, we don't need to start mentoring them. But one major area where we talk about bringing in research to provide empirical evidence to back up our argument, that in some few selected cities in Africa, even if we are not having a scientific method to generate the progress they are making, we'll have some few evidence to show that cycling is making progress in some of these cities. And we're going to look at some of these cities where cycling is making an effort. I'm a strong proponent of cycling, but I think I took more the line of cycling, more of walking than of cycling. Let's go back now. Here in Marabek. Marabek launched a Medina plan in 2016 in preparation for the COP 2022. It's the first time we have a bike share with 300 bikes in 10 stations, fully automated. It was a novel thing because that was the first time we are having bike share initiative in Africa. Well, many African countries do not see it as something that can be implementable. And so they tend not to see the need to drive it. Well, it's sad for a time. And after a while, it went to the oblivion because as laudable as it is, it was not sustained. But that does not mean all hope is lost. It can still be sustained with much advocacy and alliances. Let me take you now to Kigali in Kenya, in Kigali rather. The city was committed to green mobility, not just cycling, but they were interested in using two things: generating a lead city that will have a car-free days, and that is done by the president of Kigami. He actually instituted the bicycle day, instituted the, what we call the urban mobility day, where vehicles are parked. There will be no vehicles on the road. Everybody will be forced to use bicycle. It's either you use bicycle or you walk. And with the hope that after the first set of bicycles they have, with the progress that is made, then that green mobility can now be shared. That green mobility can now be shared to other cities. And I guess it's making progress because it's the first, or like we can call it the first bike share program that was launched in Africa. We have some interesting one, like I will mention in my opening remarks when I was doing my introduction. Yes, some other countries or some other cities too, even in Nigeria, have equally implemented this bike share program. At least I know of about 3 or 4 cities in Nigeria where we have this bike share program, which I do not know how sustainable they are because. Let's look at Kampala. From the picture, you can see 2 lanes, one congested with vehicles and humans. You have another lane that is free. So after achieving the national empty policy, the capital city of Kigali went ahead and so that they can design a non-motorized transport corridor. It was implemented in 2020 to ensure that, with the hope that cyclists is going to increase, so more cyclists intend to use the cycling corridor. Well, you may be surprised, just like Engineer Emma said, why should we spend so much money on non-existent mode of transport? But for them to convince the government that it is possible, that it is workable, the University of Makerere implemented a bike share, which did not succeed. Let's pick another example. So we can see examples of the dedicated lanes for bicycles. And you can see the other one. So you can see 3 sets of people here. We have some that are walking on the upper part. We have some that are cycling. And we have some that are using the motorized means of transportation. Whatever the method of movement they are using, one thing is certain: movement is taking place, and transportation of human beings and humans is from one location to another is equally taking place. So there's transportation, just that will have a variation of mood, while some are walking, some are cycling using the prescribed lanes, which is not common in most African cities. We'll have some on the left-hand side that are using the motorized transport system. In Addis Ababa implemented the non-motorized transport system strategy from 1919 to 2028. Of course, they received the funding for that project from the UN Road Safety Fund for engineering non-motorized transport and facilities. What are some of the elements of that agreement? They're supposed to have a bike share component, having 500 bicycles, in 69 stations that will cover an area of 8 square meters in the first phase, with the hope that subsequently, once the facility, once it has been fully regained, then there will be possibility from there to expand it. Since the government is committed to that, we can clearly say that that project has been adjudged as one of the best and most successful projects that is still currently running in Africa. So, on the picture, we can see the color variations to tell you the various locations where we have the bicycles and bicycle lanes being used. So we have 500 bicycles. You see the places that are marked on red and green and yellow. There are stations. We have about 69 stations. And the area maps you see is the coverage area. So we have places like in Churchill, in Mexico, in Mesquite Square, in Bull, in Atlas. We have where bicycle routes are used. And it is very, very important that this has been one of the most successful bike share pilot projects we have in Africa that is serving as a model for all other African countries to copy from. Let's come back to my home country, Nigeria, and Lagos. Lagos is the industrial capital of Nigeria that has over more than, I think, as at the last count, Lagos has about 10 to 16 million inhabitants in the city of Lagos alone. So it's a highly congested city. And so the non-motorized policy was set up in 2017 and received support for tuning for funding infrastructure in 2018. It was very, very difficult for the government to implement corridors where we have free cycling lane. It has been difficult during the implementation. However, some private sectors decided to come to the sector and started in this bicycle sharing lane in Nigeria universities where we have free expanse of land to serve as a showcase to demonstrate what this bicycle thing we are talking about is all about, cycling thing is all about. And so we'll have the bicycle lane and this NMT policy, we have it being revived in Lagos State University. I've seen that personally. And I think we also have another one too at Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. One is currently on there. And there is another one too in, I think, Benue State University in Makurdi. There are some universities that are already having this. Also in Oyo State, a nearby state to Lagos State, which is in Ibadan, the government equally went ahead to set up the bike shares scheme within the government sector, then within the government house. So then it was at the state secretariat. So anybody who comes to the state secretariat, you can have opportunity of logging in with the bike and go ahead. When you finish activity, you return the bike to the location and you go out. We are still waiting to see how, to what extent. But from my last visit to those two locations, I still realized that the number of bicycles that was initiated as far back as 2018, the quantity of bicycles are still the same. Instead of increasing the number, it's like the numbers are deteriorating because some of them are getting bad and there's no provision to get them replaced. Yes, this is examples of our bike share. I think this one is in one of the campuses in University of Lagos State University. It's a picture of what I was just talking about, our bike share, to provide opportunity for people to get not just the advocacy, but equally to have access to biking. Dar es Salaam. As a component of the BROT project, which has been adjudged as likely successful too, like as we mentioned before, NMT was incorporated and have been implemented in phases, at least, to provide opportunity for many as possible to enjoy in the biking services that is we are talking about here. So we can have some skirmishes of some pictures here of individuals engaged in biking and some working using the approved bicycle lane that we have in Dar es Salaam. So let's go back again to North Africa. In North Africa, I'm more concerned about Cairo because Cairo has a very large project. The implementation was slow, but the most important thing that they have started, and so they have a 20-meter bike lanes, about 6 square meter inches, and we have about 650 cycles, over 70 stations, so they cover 11 square kilometers to the extent of even integrating bus and metro stations. So the advocacy is paying off. the cities like Cairo and some other cities in Africa. So you can have a picture to see what is happening in Cairo. The upper part have a picture. You can see from the slide of motorized what it was before the policy was implemented. And in the same vicinity, in the same locality, now that the bicycle lanes have been created, we can see what is happening. The bicycle lanes have been created, and it's so created in such a beautiful ways that the one that interested me most was the one that you have to have just like a motorized lane, where you have bicycles that are coming and the ones that are going, they are clearly demarcated so that you know the lanes you are taking from going and the one you take from coming, unlike the ones you find here in Nigeria, in some of the schools in Nigeria, where you can take any lane to go in and any lane to come out. Nairobi. You can equally see from the pictures too that Nairobi too has a very fine effort to has been put, and the effort is highly appreciated because they also assigned a non-motorized policy and are trying to implement a number of cycling lanes on some part of the city. It's a step forward, and when you compare this one to Abuja, where there is absolutely nothing is happening, you can give a round of applause to Kenya for having this fine initiative. We just pray that they sustain it. We pray that they sustain it. One beautiful thing I noticed about the one in Nairobi is the fact that there is a direct safety corridor that prevents that prevents the cyclists or preventing the motorists from railing or derailing into the cycling lane. Because in most cases, that has been the major causes of accidents, where there is no clear safety demarcation between the areas earmarked for motorized transport and the areas earmarked for non-motorized transport. So sometimes you see vehicles skidding off their lanes and coming to hit cyclists on the other lane. And that has been a major cause of accidents, why many people seem to be scared. Like I mentioned here, in one of Nairobi, there's a clear demarcation that provides a safety bet for those who are cycling. But my observation in my last visit, I discovered that most of the cyclists are not using helmets in their cycling. Completion, sir. You can see that a number of ambitious efforts have also been done, also been put in place in places like Cairo, in Rabat, in Johannesburg. While some are working and some are failing, the bottom line of the truth is that efforts are being put in place. And so all we need to do is to see how we can build on this effort that has already been put in place and speed up the implementation to enable Africa to catch up with other parts of the world. Remember, the focus of alliance and the focus of the use of bicycles should not, I repeat, should not be delimited to the urban cities, because in most rural cities, the use of bicycles still not documented or not captured in literature is very, very large. So we're just trying to see how we can translate what is happening in the rural areas and move them into the urban cities. Of course, we know that once this one is done, it's going to reflect in various facets of our life. It's going to reflect in our health. It's going to reflect in our pockets. It's going to reflect in our well-being and the majority of citizens that are living in the urban cities. Cycling is a must, and we must embrace it. So coming together to form alliance, to form advocacy groups, to establish partnership, and even to set up networks will all assist us in achieving our desired goals. Thank you very much for the attention, and thank you very much for listening. You can connect us at ANWAC. And please, I want to make a sincere appeal that this paper was not developed by me. So I may not be able to provide much answers to your questions. The ones that are above my answers, the ones that are above me, I will direct it to Engineer Emma. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Franz. Looking at what you have given us there, I think, first of all, it gives a lot of hope, because actually, even from where I sit, I had not actually known that there's several of these projects or these initiatives that have gone on. Of course, I know the Nairobi one, but it looks like not all is lost. If there has been those kind of initiatives going on, and we have seen that you have actually highlighted some challenges, some were not sustainable, others were not maybe based on a comprehensive approach, and that's why we were failing, and looking also at where it is still working. So I can say that not all is lost. I want to pose a question rather than to everyone here, based on what you have seen as the barriers. What Dr. Engineer Emmanuel has alluded to, the barriers that you have seen, and looking at these best practices, the projects, the initiatives that have been going on. any thoughts on which way forward, if we were to be asked this question, which way forward, having those two in your mind, the barriers that we see from the studies that were done and also what has been happening, what should be the way forward? This is a reflection question. Think about it and just raise your hand and just talk to us, wherever you are. What is your feeling? What's your reaction? Do we just stay, we stagnate into what we have done today, or what would be the way forward? And so, Franz, you want to start off?
One of the greatest things we can do to eliminate the barrier is to develop a cycling culture. And how do we develop a cycling culture? We develop a cycling culture by starting from the schools.
From the schools?
Yes, developing a cycling culture by starting from the schools. At homes, most families have bicycles for their children at home.
I really agree to that, because one thing that I see, of course, is when people get kids, they start them on bicycles. For some reason, I see that quite often. And a kid will see another, a neighboring kid with a bicycle, and they'll start crying for a bicycle. Then after they grow a little bit, we forget about bicycles. So I think that's a point that is quite good. So if that culture can begin from those home to school, I think growing up, maybe, that's a good way forward. I think any other suggestion of the way forward, if we see these are the barriers, these are the good practices. Anybody else? Okay, Reynolds.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Good morning, depending on where you are. Yes, I think we have started on a good note. One of the ways to obviate or mitigate the challenges of the difficulty of using bicycle as a sustainable means of transportation, non-motorized transport, is the creation of awareness. When Edina John was making his presentation, he said something about lack of awareness taking a major percentage of the reasons why we are where we are. And I think what we need to do is more of this type of coming together to talk with one another, to share knowledge, to give expose about the importance of the non-motorized transportation, especially bicycling. If you know that it's environmentally friendly, it is economically friendly, it is medically friendly, so I want to be a champion. I think we need to generate more champions. People will come out and talk more about this, and the more the knowledge and advantages of using the bicycle is known, believe me, I believe that more attention will be given to it, even at the at the government levels. Thank you very much. Let me stop at this point.
No, absolutely, and thank you again for that's an important point. For where we can exchange this knowledge, and I'm saying, and you're right. I didn't know a lot about this in terms of like those best practices, different countries, and you could see things are happening, and there's so many things to learn from these examples and from the expose given by Emmanuel. Now, as we go to Constant, I see your hands up, but also think, I'm going to ask later after this by show of hands, just to see that I don't want to do a poll, but if this presentation today has changed your attitude positively towards cycling, or it has done nothing, because for me it has, but we are going to do that. So let's go to Constant. We have some 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. Constant Cap, urban planner and cyclist based in Nairobi. Just to share an interesting experience from from East Africa, well, basically from Nairobi, Kenya, has been a review of some of the design standards for urban roads that has been going on. And this was mentioned last week also by some of the government officials, that they're reviewing. I know we've had an engagement between ITDP and some of the Ministry of Transport and Urban Development, and as well as other efforts towards reviewing street design standards such that they can incorporate the necessary infrastructure Of course, a lot more will have to be done, even to the level where contractors, engineers get to appreciate this, but that also tends to be a positive step towards encouraging complete streets and adoption of cycling and also walking infrastructure.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Constant. So I think we are looking here like the way forward and ideas for moving this conversation even to more practical things. So I've seen about 4 key things. Anybody else? One last chance before we make our final conclusion. Way forward, reflection. Yeah, is that okay, Daniel?
Yes, and I think just one particular presentation.
Sorry, Daniel. Sorry, Daniel. We can barely hear you. Your connection is not.
Yeah, can you?
Yeah. So let's try Sam. Maybe Sam.
Hi, everyone. This has been a very insightful discussion, and I am just trying to look at it in the Zimbabwean context, where a lot of our cycling and pedestrian infrastructure has since been dilapidated, and for us to bring back safe cycling and walking, there is need for major infrastructure investments. I'll give an example. Our second largest city, Bulawayo, is actually renowned for the cycling culture. The culture is there, but now cyclists are no longer safe. And then also currently in Zimbabwe, we do not have adequate, public transport. It's not sufficient. So in the rural areas, people are already using bicycles to get between points A and B. So the cycle culture is there, but then if we do not have major investment to ensure cyclist and pedestrian safety, that poses a challenge for us to like fully implement it. For us in urban areas like Harare, personally, we have to drive out of town for us to cycle in a more safer environment.
Right. Yeah, thank you, Sam. And I think you have put also a very important point that is quite, I would say, a position that is both positive and I think I call it oxymoronic, because we have culture of cycling actually, like what Emmanuel was saying, but then it got faded out, and then we are trying to bring it back. So we need to actually interrogate seriously. If we have a cycling culture already there, are we promoting it? Are we doing the right advocacy to tell government this is what should be? And so, and I think that's a very good point you have put there, Sam. So I want just to say that I like the way we have said way forward. And one thing that I see about this, just combining the 2 sessions, is that we are talking about coming together. We have seen it's very important that we come together, and that's one way forward. One of the points are put for way forward, and we come together because we want to do a lot of, as you say, awareness from schools, from children growing up. We are coming together. We're able to advocate for street design. Coming together, we are able to actually, advocate for the highest level policy change. We are talking about NMTs there, non-motorized transport, active mobility, but now we need to support also governments that have actually achieved that in the cities. You have the NMT policy, but is it sitting on the shelves and just staying there, or are they investing in implementing that particular policy? So it's good to pass policy, but it is not. It doesn't make sense if the policy is there and is not being implemented. Implementation needs resources. Governments need to invest on this evidence-based intervention, walking and cycling. So the point of coming together, as I conclude, is this: that we need to do this more often. And the African Network for Walking and Cycling is giving us that platform where we can convene and exchange ideas. And I am sure, as Juliet had said, there'll be more communication, that you look out for that communication. also the working group 5, I know Africa chapter members in Africa will also help in the developing and co-creating that process for capacity building and exchange of knowledge. And again, we'll be communicating that from the Alliance side, as well as making sure that we are having synergies, we are not duplicating efforts, making sure that we come together. And again, there is a lot of hope from what I hear from different contributions from people and as well as the presenters. So I want to thank everyone, and I give this chance for any concluding remark. I start with Emmanuel, concluding remark, then I'll go to France. I don't know, Broden, if you're still there, I'll give you a chance for concluding remark. Yes, and Juliet. So Emmanuel.
Thank you very much. Just a few minutes. There's this question somebody asked on the chat forum where he says, as we discuss on coalition discussions, is it in order to say that government in Africa zero-rate taxes on cycle importation and manufacturing? I think it means to say, is it ideal to talk about tax-free cycle importation and manufacturing? And I said yes. The bicycle, of course, taxes are very important, but at this moment that we are trying to get cycling on its feet, it is important to remove taxes as much as possible, because the benefits of cycling will outweigh whatever taxes you want to collect from those who are buying bicycles or importing bicycles. For instance, we enjoy fuel subsidy in Nigeria. So it's not out of place to make tax-free bicycle systems for especially the starting point, so that when the bicycle takes shape in your city or in your country, taxes may come depending on what is available. And I think the benefits from helping you to save cost on fuel, on fuel importation and all of those, and the benefit to health and all of that, it is very, very critical that we talk less about taxes on bicycle at this moment. Thank you very much. And I want to appreciate the privilege of being part of this collaboration towards this program.
Thank you very much. I'll move to closing from Dr. Franz, just 30 seconds, and we'll have a link sent to the chat box where you can help us see how the experience with this workshop, so that we can improve the next interaction. So please take 5 minutes, just give us an evaluation of how things were based on the questions. So if you look at the chat, we'll bring out a link that you can fill out. It's here now. Kindly fill evaluation form via this link. And as we do that, Dr. Franz, give your closing remarks.
Yeah, I really want to thank the organizers of this. Global Alliance is actually educative. It's an opportunity for us to rub minds on cycling and walking in all African countries.
Okay.
I just want to say that we want to keep the flags flying. We don't want to be dampened by so many challenges or barriers to have. Because if we do, then we will not be able to make progress. There are 2 words I've removed from my dictionary. 1, it is impossible. Then 2, it can never happen. No. I removed those 2 words from my dictionary. So I'm an optimistic person, and I feel that if we continue with these 4 key things we started doing: coalition, advocacy, networking, and partnership, sure, it will take a long time, but definitely we will conquer.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And Dr. Franz, it was a pleasure. Thank you for standing in also for Christine at a short notice, I'm sure, but we wish Christine well. So I'll go to, I think, Juliet, I want you to go first and see whether everything came together nicely and what would be your parting shot for this group. And then I'll come to Bronwyn and to conclude. So Juliet.
Thank you very much, Patrick. It's been a very informative session, and I think we still have a lot to discuss in matters of walking and cycling, especially in Africa. But I think from my end, I'm a firm believer in advocacy. So if we can be able to stand up in one voice with one key message, I think we can drive this agenda of walking and cycling in Africa. So thank you very much for this session.
Absolutely. And thank you, Juliet, again, for helping to co-organizing, and thank you very much. Bronwyn, I think I'll give you a minute also to give us your parting shot and encourage us.
Absolutely encourage you. We are still get up every day passionate at Walk 21 to make that difference and to keep expanding and growing the network that we've done over these years. I like that Emmanuel said that they want to get cycling on its feet. Maybe we should talk about getting walking onto wheels, but the energy is the same, which is that momentum and recognizing the value that we have in our modes, especially on the African continent, because the vast majority of people are walking every single day. We need to value, retain this mode share and enable it with really high quality walking environments. So I encourage you to join the network. I encourage you to be part of the conversation, because it's not just about safety, it's about the whole picture of valuing walking and cycling and building our community centered on people and how they move as the primary mode, which is of course walking. And I look forward to participating with you all in more of these joined up conversations. Thank you very much, Patrick. Thank you everyone for a really interesting day.
And thank you too, Brunen. Always a pleasure. And I want to thank, first of all, not last but not least, and very much UNEP, Share the Road Program, Kali, for your support, this series of capacity building offerings that you've been doing since last year. And I think started some time back, as Lottie alluded to. I don't know if you have a final word for us for 10 seconds, Kali.
Just to thank you, really. I mean, we've still got 35 people on the line. I know everyone's busy, so thank you for staying on and being present and engaging, and I'm looking forward to the next one. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Now, I don't normally do this on behalf of everyone, the participants. One person I'll choose just to say about how the experience was verbally. I know you are doing the form, which is will help us very much to improve our next delivery. So on behalf of all the participants, anybody who wants, before I call a name, who wants to say how the experience was, and maybe on behalf of the participants? Okay.
I can see Femi Chitabe has got his hand up.
Who?
Yes, can you hear me? Good afternoon.
From Lamata, Femi.
Oh, yes.
Good
Okay.
afternoon. I'm
Yes.
so sorry I joined the meeting late and probably have missed quite a bit. But I can tell you that we are sort of making some strides in Lagos regarding non-motorized transport. With the support of UNEP and ITDP, we've invested in energy policy, and we are at the process of now its transformation into actual infrastructure development. And we've begun that with a series of meetings of the State Non-Motorized Transport Committee. We had the first meeting in September last year, the general body, and then just last week we had the first design review subcommittee meeting. So where we want to address all these issues and transform the policy into real action. So I must thank UNEP, Kali, ITDP, and all Walk 21 for all their support in getting us to this stage, and we hope to make greater strides as we move down the line. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you for coming in, even though late, but I think what you said is very important. And finally, I want Caro, on behalf of all the participants, on behalf of the members on the Africa chapter, your final, just go ahead.
Thank you very much, Patrick. So I'm from South Africa, but I also belong to the SADC Alliance of Road Safety NGOs. And I think it's what for me has been very good and has made me think, and I think will make us all think, is that there are a lot of people who are actually already working on cycling and walking. And the whole thing is to really increase our engagement with these other people, be they engineers, NGOs, civil groups, anybody, people who are the champions, and to share our experiences and all to work together. And certainly us as a SADC group, we spend a lot of time communicating together, and I think this has been very valuable. So thank you, and yeah, here's to safer cycling and walking. Thank you.
All right, so thank you very much. On behalf of the Global Alliance, I think I want to thank you for everything, I think being there and also bringing in a very, very important item and issue on the table that we discussed this, but more importantly is about the next steps moving forward. So after this, of course, we'll be having conversation with ANWAC and looking at even making more capacity building efforts more meaningful, and also that they translate into action as we move the advocacy and fast track walking and cycling using all that we have, all the tools, and we shall make sure that remaining intact, keeping, as I said in the beginning, coming together, keeping together and working together, we shall succeed. So with those many and few remarks, I would like to bid everybody farewell and thank you very much for being available and for being interested in this particular training workshop. Thank you very much.